Tabo from the Quilting Bee in Massillon, Ohio, although I'm in Florida right now. Amanda had felt it would be useful for our collaging clients to see the difference in the process as to whether you use a foundation panel for your collage or what we call the parchment paper process. And because I've never really gotten into the parchment paper, I allude to it in my classes, but all the classes are always on a foundation panel, and a foundation panel is nothing more than a piece of cotton that is of a light enough color that there's translucency to it, and so you can see your pattern behind it, whether you are keeping the pattern behind it and you can see it well enough to use for your design, or trace it onto your foundation panel. That means all of your collages are going to be with a white or off-white or light cream background. And well, I have 6 hanging on the wall here in my inner sanctum down here, and 5 of the 6 are on a foundation panel, which means they're all white. Now, one at a time, you don't think anything of it, but after a while, it becomes a little monotonous. So that's when using parchment paper is at the greatest advantage, is because you do it on parchment paper, you are able to peel it off and adhere it to any fabric you would like. For instance, I have on my design board a piece that was done with parchment paper, and I was able to peel it off and place it on this bold purple background, which really makes the flowers pop. Used a little fussy cutting I see here. These are fussy cuts, but that's the primary advantage of using the parchment paper, is you can place it on anything that you would like, as opposed to it always being a light colored foundation piece. Let's get started. All right, the beginning process of any collage is the same, whether you're using a foundation panel or parchment paper. We're going to concentrate on the foundation panel with this segment, but you're always going to be starting with your design that you have enlarged to whatever size you feel you would like. And if with a foundation panel, you have your piece of cotton that you've pressed very, very well, and it is translucent enough that you can either see your pattern through it or you've traced on it, we are going to, in either case, have our fabric, and my box is going to be green. So I've pulled out my greens, and according to my pattern, I have about 4 different values. So I've gone ahead and sorted them into my values, 1, 2, 3, or 4. They're all already with the light stainless seam 2 on them. And you can see there's various shapes and sizes, because these are all from my green drawer, which has all of my collage fabric that is waiting to be used up. So that's what we start with regardless. If we're using a foundation panel, we are going to, and I'm going to move this just a little bit. Ooh. So if we're starting with a foundation panel, I'm going to place my design on my design board, lay my fabric over, and I can either see through the fabric to my design, or I have traced it. Now my design is so simple and so bold that I have no difficulty seeing it. So I did not need to trace it. I can see my different values. I can see 1, 2, 3, and 4. No problem. And now all I'm going to do is start cutting. And I'm going to I think I'm going to start somewhere. There's a pin here. I'm going to start somewhere here in what I would be thinking of as my second value. And just start adhering. And I would finish this, and once I was satisfied with it, I'm going to remove it, steam it really good, put it in a sandwich with the batting and whatever my backing is, quilt it, and do my binding, and I will have a finished product. So that's using the foundation process. Now, if we decide we are going to use parchment paper, again, those beginning steps are the same. We have our fabric selected. It has light steam seam on it. We have our pattern on our design board, but instead of putting our foundation panel over our design, we are going to place a piece of parchment paper. Parchment paper, not freezer paper. Parchment, the kind of stuff you put on the cookie sheets. That's what we're using. Freezer paper will make me very, very sad. It will not work out at all. So I'm putting my parchment paper in place over my pattern. And I, again, can easily see the different values. So I'm not having to mark anything on my parchment paper. I could if I needed to, but it would probably be much more intricate than my box. And so I might want to make certain I can see well the different demarcations between my values. So at that point, I would trace it, but I don't need to for this. So again, let me take my same piece that I used before, and I don't remember where I placed it, so we'll place this one here. Now, parchment paper is very, very smooth. There is no texture to it. It's just plain blank, nothing. So oftentimes, this piece will not adhere, and that means we need to take a little heat to start to release the light steam seam so it will adhere to our parchment paper. The best thing to use is a little clover iron, or you can use a little travel iron, just the tip, and we're going to go over this just a little, just enough to where it won't move off. I can still take it off if I change my mind, but it isn't going to move on its own. Let's put this back in a better place. And another piece that I had cut out. So at this point, because I try to always have between 1/8 of an inch and 1/4 of an inch of overlap, it's going to start to adhere to this other piece of fabric. But I might still need to just a little bit release a little bit of the light steam seam. Not down here where I've overlapped. If I give heat to this portion where there is the overlap, they are now married. You will not change your mind on either one of them unless you want them both to move, because they are now adhered lightly together. So when we're having to use our little mini iron on additional pieces, just on that part of the fabric that is not overlapping. And from here on in, probably, well, that's a little dark. I just happen to have some cut out. I will just continue to build and probably not have to use my little mini iron anymore unless I start when I'm with my lightest up in here. But I will probably start down in here. So that is the primary difference, is you're having to use a little bit of heat at the very beginning just to get it to start to adhere to the parchment paper. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this, and I will see you back here when we're ready for the next step. All right, so I have brought it over to my little pressing surface, and I am going to just gently press it, not iron, just press. All I'm trying to do is get all of the little overlaps so they are lightly glued together. Just releasing a little bit of that light seam so that I end up with what amounts to a sticker. And I can peel this off gently because I didn't overlap a lot. And be able to mount it on a more interesting background. I am not going to do it because I don't want to waste my piece here, by really steaming it well and adhering it to the background. So I hope this helped show the difference in the process between foundation collage and parchment pressing collage. So thank you for joining me. Hope this helped show you the different steps getting into the processes. If you have any questions, just let us know. We'll be happy to answer them as best we can. Goodbye for now.